I have been taught to be grateful for things my whole life, but I've actually made it a practice. So if you can think of three things you're grateful for, and then three things that you appreciate about yourself, if you can do that every day, especially when you're in a bad place, you will realize that you have more and more things to be grateful for, more and more things that you appreciate about yourself, and it really does help to shift your mindset and put you in a more positive place.
I'm just like so excited to finally get to chat with you.
Me
Alana,
too.
Hadid, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
I'm very excited to be here.
For all of those who don't know, who haven't seen Alana like everywhere, I'm so excited to get into this too, because I don't know if like you meant to become an influencer, if this just happened, but most of all, you're a fashion designer. You have like an incredible clothing company you started in 2017 called La Detresse, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And you co-founded an eyewear company. Then meanwhile, you are for sure an influencer with like hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and TikTok. I think people are just drawn to like your beautiful spirit, and
Oh,
we're
thank
so
you.
excited to be able to chat with you. That's a rundown from me, but in your words, when you're at a party, people ask you what you do. What do you say?
I usually say I'm an accidental influencer. It was never my intention to be an influencer. I started Instagram like everyone else, like in 2011 with pictures of random stuff and food and I think, yeah, so I call myself an accidental influencer, a creative director, clothing designer, and, human rights activist as well. So that's always a
Yeah.
conversation starter.
Hey, probably the most important title out of all of them. But so did you start Instagram before you started the clothing brand? Like, what was the succession of your career, I guess?
I started Instagram, I believe in 2011. It takes too long to scroll all the way down, so I can't remember exactly when. But yeah, I started just like everyone else. I think everyone was excited about what Instagram was and this new idea of, connecting with friends. And so I was just kind of talking about my life, and I've thankfully been blessed with this beautiful privileged life where I get to go do a lot of really cool stuff and travel, and I was always in the fashion world. So I was just showing people what I was doing, and people seemed to like it. So I accrued a fair amount of followers. Not comparatively to a lot of other people, but I'm proud of the amount of followers that I've gotten over the years.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, you have a massive following. And I mean, okay, so yeah, you touch on it, but you also have quite an interesting like childhood and growing up. You come from this. I was like doing research online, and I was like, I guess people call it the Hadid dynasty, or like your stepsisters, Bella and Gigi, are like top
Half.
models. Half
Half
sisters
sisters.
there.
No,
Okay,
same dad,
perfect.
different moms. Yeah. Mhm.
Got it. So you just had probably a very interesting your dad is like a real estate developer who we were talking before this has developed like all of these buildings in DC that I grew up going to, which is so cool.
Yeah.
Um how has that been? Like how has your childhood and growing up been? It was probably a little different than some of ours.
I mean, yeah, it was incredibly privileged. I'm not gonna lie. I had the ability to travel a lot and experience a lot, meet a lot of really amazing people as a child. But I'm very lucky in that I had such a down to earth mother who kept us, my sister, my older sister Marielle, and I incredibly grounded. I do think like for what everyone has gotten in my family, we are we have kept ourselves incredibly grounded as we
Yeah.
possibly can be. We spend a lot of time working on philanthropic things and human rights activities and things that keep us and remind us of our privilege. So yeah, but I had an amazing childhood. I'm very privileged. I grew up outside of DC, and so being, at the time I didn't realize how amazing that was, but now looking back, I realize being surrounded by the nation's capital and, being exposed to all the things and the trappings of the government and kind of our local news was national news. That is just
Yeah.
was just such an incredible privilege, in and of itself. So, beyond how cool my life was, just
Yeah.
growing up there was such an amazing opportunity.
Absolutely. I feel like I for sure took that for granted as well. Like, you're in the center of all this power, and yet you're just like, "Well, I'm just going to the movies tonight. I'm just a
Yeah.
teenager." Like, and meanwhile, all these amazing things are going on around you. Was it ever hard for you, or has it been hard for you having that spotlight kind of always on you and your family?
It was never really, a question. It just was happening, and so I feel thankful that it wasn't thrust upon me. It kind of happened very slowly. My
Yeah.
dad was always, well known. He was in Architectural Digest and Fortune and all of these things. So we were exposed to a lot of things very slowly, to the point where now, obviously my sisters are quite well known. And I think because it wasn't something that happened overnight, we have been able to deal with it in a way. And also have found a way to use our privilege to the benefit of, hopefully, the benefit of others and not just ourselves, which has been very important and kind of a pillar in our lives.
Yeah, you're doing so many cool things with the fashion company, with all that you do for human rights activism. Throughout
Thank you.
your life so far and your maturity and wisdom, what would you say is the best advice you've ever gotten?
So I've gotten amazing advice, so much awesome advice, throughout the years. I think some of the best advice that I've ever gotten is to ask for help. Um, I I come from an incredibly independent family. We are forward thinkers, and we have been taught and learned to stand on our own. But I think when I learned, to implement this amazing advice to ask for help, was kind of a game changer for me. And it's funny because, that had always been something that I had relied on for probably the last like 10 years have been like really an ask for help 10 years, like really, tap your resources. Um, and, I just heard an interview with, Bill Gates, and he was saying the difference between, doers and dreamers is, asking for help, and I was like,
Hmm, I
so yeah,
love
I
that.
I do think asking for help is probably, the best advice I've ever gotten, and the kind of advice that I give to others when, people ask me.
Have there been specific scenarios in your life or specific situations where that really has saved you, like having that courage to ask for help?
I think in everything that I've ever done well. I I think in every instance that I've ever succeeded or, really accomplished exactly what I wanted to accomplish, I had gone to someone that I felt could give me some, nuggets of wisdom, and I asked for help on things. And I think when I've done things on my own, I've also done amazing things, but I think also relying on other people and um, you know, realizing that you may not always be the authority, on the thing that you've been doing maybe for a really long time. There are always people who are going to give you, a perspective that you maybe have never thought of. And so, I think it's definitely been something that has helped me throughout life in probably everything, all endeavors that I've
Yeah.
ventured on.
Have you found certain times that it's been harder to ask for that help than others in certain situations, maybe?
I mean, it's always hard to ask for help. I also come from, like I said, a very independent family. And I rely on myself a lot, which I think is also important. But I think that there's been a lot of times where you have to humble yourself. And I think humbling yourself is probably one of the hardest parts of asking for help. It's to say, I don't know. And to
Yeah.
be able to say I don't know is a hard thing to do. And especially for me, I'm one of those people who, um my intellect is an important part of my being.
Yeah.
So to be able to say to someone like, "I may not know all the information, can you give me input?" I think, has been, humbling and grounding and super important for moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. Have you
Thanks.
ever had a worse piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
It's usually,
The
"You
flip
should
side.
date that guy." It's the, "You should date that guy." It's the worst.
Let's dive
It's
into
the
that,
worst.
Alana. Let's, like, really take a deep dive behind that one.
No, I mean, that's what I can think of. I mean, I feel like, and this sounds kind of cliche, but I don't think that I've gotten really bad advice, and the reason being is that I don't really think there is, like, necessarily bad advice. You can always decide not to take someone's advice, but that person is speaking from their own personal experience, so I think it was probably good advice
Yeah,
for them and probably not great advice for me. I think the I think the worst advice would be, um, not to trust yourself. And when people are telling you not to trust your own thoughts, your own feelings, that's usually pretty bad advice.
yeah. I think that would be, like, unilaterally bad advice.
Yeah.
D Do you have any other, like, quotes maybe or things that you see online that you feel like are maybe cliche words of wisdom that just have always rubbed you the wrong way?
I mean, live, laugh, love.
That's a good one. It's
Mhm.
it's so
What
bad.
what does it even mean?
I don't
You know,
know.
I think there's a lot of kind of flighty spiritual advice that's going around that I don't want to point to a certain person or a certain quote or a certain thing, but I do think that there's a lot of like kind of um this kind of random spirituality that's happening right now that
Yeah.
I'm very spiritual, but I think that there's a lot of like this idea that that you can just manifest everything without having to actually work towards it, and I think that that's
Mhm.
a problem at the moment. Yes, I manifest a lot of what I'm doing, but I also work towards the manifestation. I'm also like taking the steps in my life that would further me towards the things that I wanna manifest. So I think that this kind of idea that you can just, sit back in your house and chant, a few things every day and all the things will come to you, I think that that's, kind of, uh, disrespectful to the
Yeah.
people and, to the people that they're talking to, yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. I also wanted to touch on that because as I've followed your page and followed along with everything that you post in your life, I always found it so beautiful how like spiritual you are and it seems like you're always looking for like and I think maybe that's what drew both of our pages to each other. Like you're always looking for beautiful like uplifting words. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and kind of I mean, have you always been super spiritual? Is that something that you've grown into?
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, I wouldn't say always. I would say probably mostly in my adult life, but, definitely in the last, like, 5 years especially, I've become a lot more spiritual, a lot more connected with myself. Um, I I've done a few things that I think are really important. I did, the Hoffman process, which, I will, like, scream into the high heavens is, like, the best thing in the world. Um but I also have read a lot of amazing books. The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle is one of my favorites, and I just think, there are so many amazing philosophers and teachers, that have been speaking about these kind of topics for so long about spirituality and how it's connected to, to manifestation, how it's connected to, inner self work, how it's connected to staying present. And once I started working on that and really kind of connecting to myself and my being, and I do a lot of practices that I think are super important to stay grounded. Um, yeah, I think it was a massive shift for me in my life. So yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
big proponent of spirituality, but just the right kind, the kind that I feel like isn't just about profiting off the people that they're speaking to, who are really just looking for a place to go when they need some help, like some good advice.
do you feel like there was been the a big realization that you've had since starting your spirituality practice a little bit more seriously?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of ironic considering my advice is asking for help, but I also think that, like, you contain all of the things that you need to be successful, and in that, you contain the ability to ask for help. You know, you
Yeah.
contain all of the wisdom that you need to know is actually within you, because it's gonna be different from me to, to you, Christy. Like, everyone's, path and journey and everyone's necessities are going to be different. So you have everything within you that you need to get yourself to the next level. Whether or not that means that you need to find a mentor or you need to do that journey alone. Those are all those answers are actually like completely inside. You just have to unlock those things, which is the hard part.
But it's such a beautiful concept to feel like it's just things that need to be awakened or unlocked within yourself and not things that you need to find anywhere outside of yourself, which I feel like is what we usually think about.
I think the difference is that reading these books and, doing these practices isn't about them, necessarily the teacher or the process. It isn't about them transposing their ideas onto me. It's them saying something to me that unlocks within me what I already need to do. It's opening up. It's like blossoming the flower. It's basically the watering.
Yeah,
It's the watering of the flower. I'm the flower. I they are giving me the water, but I am the flower. I have to do the blooming. So,
I love that.
it's more about that.
If you are listening to this podcast, you are probably a fan of inspirational quotes. And if that's the case, then you should check out my book. I feel that it's a cute little retro book with each chapter being a different emotion and then quotes that can help you with that emotion. So if you're looking to support me or the show, if you need a cute little gift for a friend or just something to flip through when you're feeling down one day, then this book is for you. You can purchase it at quotesbychristy.com, which is my website, or the link will be in the show notes. I want to circle back to the influencer life because that's like mostly what
Sure.
I've been exposed to of yours. How has it been for you? Like, do you like it? Do you find it fun? I mean, everyone I feel like has a different take. All the influencers that I've spoken to kind of have different takes on it. So I'm always interested to know like what your experience has been like in that realm.
I mean, it is fun. Obviously, it's fun. Like, I get a bunch of stuff. I get to go to cool events. I get to travel around the world, so that's fun. But I think the biggest misconception about it is that it's easy, and that is a huge misconception. It's actually quite hard. It's all your own creative ideas. You are you are every part of your team. I don't have a team.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am all of the things. I'm the videographer, I'm the creative, I'm the talent, I negotiate the deals. So, um, uh, I do have someone who helps me with that now, but for a very long time I did not.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that that's a big misconception is that it's this kind of easy, ridiculous job that, just requires getting free stuff. And listen, like, you can look at it that way, but truthfully, like, look at the content coming out of these influencers that you watch. Most of the people who you're paying attention to are probably creating pretty cool content. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work to get that out, and so it's
Mhm.
been I love it. I think it's amazing. I get to make my own hours, I get to set my own, uh, you know, rates. I get to decide what businesses I want to promote, and they are by and large businesses that I really believe in. So I'm not just like hawking a tea because, someone's paying me money. It's
Yeah.
if it is that it's something I actually drink and
Yeah.
like, but again, it's hard work, but it can be really fun. It's just like anything else. Truthfully, like any other job. Um, you know, it's hard work. It's work to do it. This just happens to have like a lot of really cool kind of perks
Yeah.
to it. And and the people who can do it, there's a lot of people who would really like to be influencers, and it's not for them. So, but I do think that if you like being creative, if you like being on camera, if you enjoy talking about things that you love, then you could probably do pretty well in this space. Yeah.
I mean, people are clearly I think I think they're most attracted on the internet, especially nowadays, to people that are super authentic, and I think you do a great job at that, and it's not actually that
Thank-
easy to, like, show off your true self online. Like, I find it so hard. I never even show my face on my page, but even in the podcast, I'm like, "How do I, like, show people who I am?" It's just it's harder than you would think. But do you have advice for someone who is trying to be an influencer and who just, like, can't quite figure out how to, like, show their authentic selves?
I think what people are afraid of is that people will not like them and won't connect with them.
Yeah.
And I have to say that, like, the people that I connect the most to, especially thankfully, like TikTok has really helped with this, are the people who are being quirky, who are being different, who have, a perspective on life that I don't necessarily have, or one that I connect with completely.
Yeah.
You'll never know how many people connect with you until you are authentically you, because when you're acting like a persona, people figure that out, especially because we've been exposed to social media for so long. People know
Yeah.
when you're faking so quickly.
It's so true, so quickly.
Yes. Yeah, right away. So be you, like, and that sounds easy to say, but harder to do, and which is why influencing is hard, because it is hard to be authentic while you're looking at a camera, while you're talking about, a product, while you're doing all these things. It's hard to think of a story that goes along with it that is authentically yours. But if you can
Yeah.
do that, then you definitely will connect with more people that
Yeah.
want to see an authentic person like you. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I feel like the right people is also I feel like people think about quantity over quality a lot of times, and I think even businesses are seeing that audiences on Instagram, on TikTok, it's better to have 5,000 followers that are really loyal and really interested than a million followers that, like, only half care.
A
So,
hundred
it's not all about
percent.
the numbers, which I feel like we focused on for a long time.
Yeah, 100%. Micro influencers are killing it right now.
Oh,
People
yeah.
with, like, small followings who are willing to, like, dedicate their time to do, like, UGC, or to, like, really speak to their following, and have connected in a way that people with millions of followers really don't have the privilege of doing, because they can't talk to every single person in their realm.
Yeah.
That is, like, that's the most amazing part about, a small following, is that you really can connect to your followers. So don't who
Absolutely.
cares? Yeah. I don't have as many followers as my sisters, and I still do pretty well for myself. So,
Yeah, no, it really is about the quality of the people following you 100%.
yeah.
I I'm sure you started a fashion brand, you're an influencer, you have had a lot of business success clearly. I would love though to hear one of the biggest lessons you've learned from one of the hardest times in your maybe personal life.
Um, I think I've had a lot of hard times. I think also that's an important thing to say. I've been depressed, I've been sad, I've definitely felt like there were times, even with work, that things weren't going the way I wanted, or that I wasn't going to get to the next level of what I was doing. And I think my mom always said that, smile, it has a physiological reaction.
Mm.
And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but, that is a huge thing for me. It, like, makes me a little teary thinking about it, because, um, you know, listen, I'm not saying that it's gonna get you through depression. I'm not saying that it's going to get you to the next level of your business, but if you can find a way to just actually physically smile, it actually changes your body chemistry. Um, doing that, put on the movie that makes you laugh, or see the person, or put on a song and dance. Whatever is going to make you smile a little bit. It's super important to like live in a place of gratitude and positivity, but also to physiologically smile, because it changes your body. It really does. And so I don't know, that is just advice that will always get me through a hard day. Yeah.
I love that. Is there specific things or practices that you had during some of those more difficult mental health moments, like you said, struggling with depression or whatever it was, that really helped you during those times?
Yeah, I do a gratitude and appreciation practice that I think is incredibly mind blowing. A lot, I do it. A lot of huge teachers, Oprah does it. A lot of people do gratitude and
So it must be
appreciation.
good.
Exactly. But a lot of really important, a lot of people who people take a lot of advice from,
Yeah.
do gratitude and appreciation. But I have been taught to be grateful for things my whole life, but I've actually made it a practice. So if you can think of three things you're grateful for, and then three things that you appreciate about yourself. So it can't be like, you can be grateful for your dog, you can be grateful for your house, you can be grateful for getting a good night sleep. And then you have to say three things that you appreciate about yourself, three things that you really like about yourself. So, it could be that I have beautiful eyes, but it could also be that I'm a loving, caring person. Um, so if you can do that every day, especially when you're in a bad place, you will realize that you have more and more things to be grateful for, more and more things that you appreciate about yourself, and it really does help to shift your mindset and put you in a more positive place. So that's something I
Yeah,
do.
that's
Yeah.
great. I feel like I always make, like, a New Year's resolution to do those things, and I last, like, 3 days. Do you do that every day?
Pretty much, yeah. I do it every day.
That's
One of
amazing.
the ways that I keep it a practice is that it's something I do with my boyfriend and his daughter before we eat dinner.
Oh,
So
I love that.
yeah, so if you can figure out if it's like write it on a Post-it, and stick it on your mirror, so it's something you do with yourself while you're brushing your teeth, or it's something you do with your family before you eat, or, maybe it's something that you wanna do in the car when you're driving, so you put a sticky note on your car, steering wheel, so that you remember to do it. Just it takes literally 10 seconds. It might take longer. For me now, it's a lot easier. It becomes second nature. I can think of things that I'm grateful for and things I appreciate about myself. It's a muscle that you have to
Yeah,
work out. But, if you can try to do that every day, I always say that, like, the more you are grateful for the things you have, the more that the universe gives you to be grateful for. So,
I love
um, yeah, I think if you can make that a practice, but especially when you're in a bad mental space, it just kind of it always shifts. It always. I've never given that advice to anyone and not seen that it's had a shift. Maybe it's not an earthquake, but there's a shift for sure.
that's such great advice, and I think it's true that it's all about just making it a habit, and once it's a habit and once it's solidified, it almost, like you said, becomes second nature, but you have to do it enough days in a row for it to become that habit, so
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, also, like, if you start doing it for stupid things, and excuse me saying stupid, but if
No.
you can if you go to a restaurant and you eat and you like the food, instead of just saying, "Ooh, this food is good," you say to yourself, "Wow, I'm grateful for how good this meal is." You start seeing, or like someone holds the door open for you. You say thank you, but internally you say, "Wow, I'm really grateful for that person who just opened the door for me." You will start making it a part of your everyday life, and then you'll notice that instead of just like letting the small things pass you by, you'll start being grateful for them, and more of those things will occur to you to be grateful for, and like I said, it's not that like the universe is going to start like changing your whole life. It might, it has for me, but you will notice how much more you have to be grateful for. And I guarantee you, it makes you feel like your life is so much more abundant than you did before.
I love that reframe because I would honestly never think to say that to myself, but it does just kinda make everything a little bit more deep than it is. Like, even like you said, like having a good meal somewhere, like a lot of people don't get a good meal at a restaurant. That is a huge privilege. And just to think like, "Oh, I'm grateful for this beautiful restaurant, this beautiful meal," it just feels like feels right. It feels like you're, like, giving it the attention that it deserves.
Exactly. Yeah, you're telling it and yourself that you have a lot to be grateful for, even if it's just little things you've never been grateful for before. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that also, like, definitely feeds into the whole idea of just, like, being more present in your life and recognizing those little things. And so, I feel like it's a double-edged sword. I love that. I'm gonna start doing that, like, right after this interview. Um,
Well, I'm grateful for this
okay.
interview.
Yeah. I'm grateful to be sitting here and talking to a beautiful human, and this has been an edifying conversation. I want to finish it off with, again, I am so grateful I've seen you, like, share some of my quotes. You always are sharing beautiful words. Do you have a favorite quote?
I knew you were gonna ask this question. And I can't think of a favorite quote I have. I know that that sounds really horrible. I can't think of a favorite quote. I think probably because there's so much in the world to remember and think about.
Yeah.
But probably my favorite quote, and it's my mom. My mom's always said, don't do anything stupid. So and I just think that that's
I
amazing.
love it.
She never said don't do anything I wouldn't do. She always said when we were young, don't do anything stupid. And I just think that's an amazing quote, don't do anything stupid. She's probably gonna hate me for having said that on a podcast, but I just think it's an amazing way to look at the world.
It honestly is though. It's sometimes I love that because sometimes it doesn't have to be that deep to apply to, like, everything in your life. A lot of times
Yeah.
we know the smart thing to do and we know the dumb thing to do, and for some reason we choose the dumb thing. And that advice would be really helpful to actually follow, but it doesn't have to be poetic or the most eloquent thing in the world to, like, really stick with people and to stick with your kids clearly and your friends, and so I actually think that's, like, beautiful and profound in its own way.
I'm sure I could have come up with a much more amazing quote, from, someone really, like, profound, but truly, it's something I think about all the time. It's a quote that comes to me all the time, and it's my mom, so I
Hey,
love it.
and that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be words that have just stuck with you, and I think a lot of times we assume or, like, want to come off to other people as, like, though we're just, like, quoting Thoreau in our minds all day, and that's not that human, and that's not that real, and so what you shared is human and real, and I think
Thank
it's
you.
wonderful, wonderful advice.
Thanks,
Alana,
thanks.
this has been so fun. I've loved getting to chat with you. Thank you for joining us, for sharing your wisdom and your beautiful advice and words. I want to make sure that all of our listeners can follow along with you with your work, with your brand and your pages. Let us know where we can go.
Follow me on Instagram at Lonzy Bear, and everywhere else, it's Lonzy Bear as well, so you can find me everywhere. I'm just the Lonzy Bear.
I think that's why I got confused too because I was like, "Who's Lonzy Bear?" Then I looked at your page and I was like, "Oh, like, beautiful name." And then I kept seeing Lonzy Bear plays. Is there, like, a reason that username came up?
Oh, it's my mom used to call me Lonzy Bear when I was a baby. So, obviously, my
Oh,
mom is a huge part
cute.
of my life. When I was a little kid,
Oh,
that was my nickname,
okay.
and I just thought it was a fun way to introduce myself to the world. I didn't realize that it was gonna become, like, my universal nickname, but here we are, I'm Lonzy Bear.
Oh, I love that, and honestly, I love how much you've quoted your mom and talked about your mom, who if your mom's listening, you did a great job because it's, like, my dream to have my kid, like, say so many beautiful things about me in a podcast that's about, like, the most uplifting words you've heard, and if they quoted me several times, I'd be like, "Oh, I crushed it." So, good
He's
job, mom.
Yes.
Alana, thank you so much. This was
Thank
such
you,
a
Christy.
pleasure. This was so fun. And to everyone listening and watching, don't forget to subscribe to The Shift, tune in for our next episode, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.